Whether we want to admit it or not, every one of us has an innate desire to identify and to identify with another. We all want someone to know us, to understand us, to empathize with us. The need to be identified is not about popularity or fame, but rather our desire for connection and acknowledgement. People need to identify with others and have others identify with themselves. Unlike any other gods, we have a God that identifies with us. In Hebrews chapter 2, talking about Jesus, it says, "We do not have a high priest who is not able to sympathize with us in our weakness, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet was without sin." Jesus has been there. He gets it. He feels it. He understands. Jesus experienced all that we're experiencing and all that we will experience living in this fallen world. He identifies with us. He understands what it feels like when to suffer physically. He understands what it feels like when a friend turns their back on you. He understands what it feels like when a family rejects you. If Jesus were to text, do you guys know what that is? He'd write BTDT BTTS. Does anyone know what that means? I'm so cool. It means been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. Jesus could say that. He's been there. He's done that. He's been through it all. What can we say to people who feel defenseless, to people who say God is far off, indifferent to my needs, they feel unimportant and that God does not see them? The answer is Jesus. God in Jesus Christ shares our humanity and our weakness. He shares our weaknesses to identify with us, but then He also leads us through our sufferings. You know the saying, misery loves company? That's true, but a better saying is that misery loves relief. Jesus identifies with us, but He also leads us out of it. This is the meaning of the cross. Jesus not only identifies with us, but He also leads us out. He shows us the way to suffer that brings us hope and peace. During this season of Lent, Reverend Bob and I have been preaching on the words from the cross, looking at the ways each words that were spoken were words of love. Last week, Reverend Bob showed us that the words love that Jesus provides not only for the future, but for the present. This morning, we're going to look at a love that identifies. Verse 45 says, "From the 6th hour until the 9th hour, and that is from noon to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when the sun is shining the brightest, darkness came over the land. And then about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out, 'Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani,' which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Commentators say of all the words that Jesus spoke, these words were the most troubling. When we read that Jesus cried out, we get a picture that Jesus is shouting aloud. But these words, cried out in Greek, literally means He screamed. Jesus screamed. And the reason why this is so troubling is because it's so out of character with Jesus. From the beginning of His trial, from the time of His arrest, Jesus was always calm. He never raised His voice. He was always in control. Throughout the whole arrest and trial, Jesus was always together. But now, here He is, screaming, my God, why have you forsaken me?" This is such a troubling statement that we're almost sure that it's not made up. Some people believe that the Gospels were made up by followers of Jesus Christ and that they're not accurate historically and they're not valid. But the thing is, if you were making up a story about a founder of your religion and you're wanting to promote this religion, you would never have the founder of your religion say these despairing and hopeless words. You would never make something up like that. And that's why it is almost for sure that Jesus said it. Why? What was happening? Why did Jesus lose it on the cross? Jesus' cry tells us that Jesus underwent infinite suffering, suffering like he's never endured before. We know Jesus wasn't crying out, screaming out because of his physical suffering, though it was great. He was beaten, remember? He was flogged. He experienced all kinds of physical suffering, but he never once raised his voice. Up to that moment, Jesus had been unbelievably calm. So when he starts to scream, you know this is something else. This is something way beyond any physical or psychological suffering. This is Jesus' spiritual suffering. When darkness came down on the land, that was symbolic to what was happening to Jesus spiritually. The Bible sometimes describes eternal lostness or hell using metaphor of the fire. But more often, the Bible describes hell as utter darkness, absolute darkness. When Jesus screamed, my God," his soul, his very soul, was being plunged into absolute darkness, utter darkness. He was beginning to unravel. He was experiencing hell. Unfortunately, our minds cannot completely understand what Jesus was experiencing. But note, hell nor heaven are in time. There's no such thing as 3 hours in heaven or 3 days in heaven, nor is there 3 hours in hell or 3 days in hell. Jesus was not hanging on the cross saying, if I just hang on a few more hours. Jesus was experiencing eternal lostness. He experienced all the sufferings of being eternally cast out of the presence of God. We can't totally grasp this. It is beyond our imagination and our experience. First of all, no one would ever experience what Jesus experienced, because no one would experience rejection from God while they're crying out to God, Father, Father. No one has ever been rejected when he's calling out to God. And second of all, no one has shared in the oneness with the Father as Jesus has. The Father and Jesus are one from all eternity. They were ever before one another, giving and receiving love in perfect unity. Think about this. When a friend rejects you, that's terrible. But it's nothing compared to when a spouse rejects you. Every psychologist, even lawyers who practice family law, know that there's nothing more traumatic than when your spouse rejects you and walks out on you. And that's because of the deep level of relationship between the two. If a friend rejects you, you get over it. But if a spouse rejects you, well, you almost never get over it. But this rejection Jesus is experiencing is infinitely greater. No husband has ever been one with his wife as the Son was with the Father from all eternity. When Jesus was taking on the sins of the world, he was cast out into utter darkness. Whatever he experienced would have been infinitely greater than all the hells anyone could have experienced. And that's why he screamed.